What's up, everybody? This is the Rabid Hedgehog, and once again, we're at Indian Motorcycle of Oklahoma City. Well, we're around the corner because they're doing a big demo event with Indian Motorcycles, but I'm stealing one of their used bikes, which is the Royal Enfield Meteor 350. So I have got to ride this motorcycle before, as many of you know, but it was in a lead and catch rider kind of deal. In this case, I get to roam the streets by myself and get to ride it at the paces that most people are going to actually use this. So we're going to actually get to test this on the interstate. We're going to see what it can do at the higher speeds instead of about 55, I think was the maximum we got before. Now, one thing about it, this is what we see here. This is what the Meteor comes with. It has a little backrest on it. It has the little windshield on this one here. 4,300 is what they're asking for on it. Like I said, it is the 2022 model year. And I really loved the Meteor as a commuter style motorcycle the first time I rode it. And we of course did commuting style speeds, but here in a state like Oklahoma, we have wide open spaces and straight lines and boring rides, but we have to ride long distances to get everywhere. So for instance, like from my house up there near what's called Guthrie, it takes something like 30 minutes or more to get down here to downtown Oklahoma City, and we have to do an interstate, or if we didn't, then it would take over an hour. So using I-35 and 235 and some other roads around here in Oklahoma City, we have to use speeds. And one thing about a commuter bike for this state is that it has to be able to handle those and be reliable and stable, because we have wind, we have semis, we have busted roads, we have so many things. And we get to test that more so today than we did before. Now, I want to point out that this one, they do come stock with the heel toe shifter. This one was removed. It does have the center stand on it just as before. I forgot to put that up when I pulled this out, but we'll get that put up there. But it comes with everything you need. It comes with the passenger accommodations with the little backrest, and it has quite a bit of accessories for a motorcycle that's sub $5,000 brand new. And they're just fantastic looking. I mean, it is a little bit bigger for some of your more tinier folks, because it does have a taller seat height that's near 30 inches. And it's wider, so if you're a little bit shorter, then it does take a little bit to get your legs across. I actually had my teammate Honey Badger sit on it before, and it was a little bit of tipsy toes for her, and she has around a 27-inch inseam. Of course, mine is a 32-inch inseam, so I don't have any problems flat-footing this motorcycle. It's also that width, too. But the position, in terms of where you sit, was fine for her, because you get to grab the tank, and you get to hold on to this motorcycle very well. Now, if you guys recall, the instrument cluster is very well laid out. To me, it's not too heavy to get off the side stand. It is a little top-heavy for somebody who's a little shorter. Ignition key right there. You have your little cool little Royal Enfield navigator right there that you can connect your phone with. Of course, remember, this one does have USB, connections and all this other stuff, and Bluetooth, and this kind of got some modern features to it, which is pretty cool. And your engine cutoff switch here, you go to the middle there for your run, all the way left to start. No tachometer. We have 1,199.3 miles on it, and gas gauge is right there. Your indication is right there as well. Of course, your ABS, so it does have ABS equipped on it. Like I said, very well equipped for a motorcycle its price. And you do have flash to pass by turning over to the right there on that. There's your regular brights and your standard lights. Push to cancel turn signals, very standard affair there. I like that they're separate on the dashboard. That's just something that I've always liked. Back here, there's a little trigger that scrolls through the screen that gets your odometer and everything. Of course, there's time and all that good stuff, and the fuel gauge, the speedometer. Very well laid out. Nice little horn on it. And a standard style fork. Standard style suspension in the rear. And away we go. I'll put every single detail in the comments below, or the description, I should say. and that way you can have all the access to all the fun stuff that this motorcycle has. Now this one, somebody adjusted the foot shifter down a little bit, so I can't quite get my big size 14 foot under there, but you know, that's not too bad of a deal. That's something that's adjustable. It's just a little bit low for me at the moment, but that will not be a big deal. Now, the mirrors, I'll get those readjusted for my tastes here real quick while we're sitting still. But the mirrors were really good the last time. A little bit of vibration from the little single 350 engine. But nothing major. Like I said, the last time I was on here, this reminded me of being just a pure motorcycle experience. Something that we lack anymore because we have a lot of electronic nannies and other things and ride-by-wire technologies that sometimes takes away some of that feeling that motorcycles have. All right, getting onto the interstate now. Getting up to about 65 will be a good spot to be in. We're in 5th gear, which is the top gear for this motorcycle. And it is cruising nicely. You can see there are some vibrations in the mirror, but not too bad through the hands or anything. I don't feel much coming through those. Of course, it is colder today. It's in the 40s here in Oklahoma, Fahrenheit, so pretty chilly. But so I got these big giant Tour Master gloves on, so that could be dampening some of those vibes coming through to the hands. Oh, I've actually walked my way to 70 there. We got to hold on, buddy. We got to get to the 70 zone here in a moment. We want to wait for that. But this is riding very nicely. That was one thing I was very impressed with. I mean, Texas and Oklahoma are both fairly wide open places and big roads, big areas. But we got a little bit worse condition of roads, a little bit more bumps, a little bit more broken concrete, and the way they do the ring grooves are a little bit different here. And one thing that happens with motorcycles with thinner front wheels, kind of like the Meteor, sometimes they get caught in a groove and they'll start tracking, and I'm actually intentionally driving in this groove, trying to see if it will track it, and it is not pulling it around, so it's actually doing that very well. So it's a very nice, you know, planted motorcycle for such a small motorcycle. And that was the great thing, and I'm still loving the way this thing rides. It's so very comfortable. I mean, that was the impression I had of it the first time. Today it is still more comfortable. I mean, it is just a lovely little ride. The windshield has a little break in there, so that way it can allow for a, you know, unbuffeting zone. I mean, I don't have any buffet. I'm 6 foot tall with that 32-inch inseam, and I'm not getting any buffet from my helmet or anything like that. In fact, this is the quietest this helmet has ever been on any motorcycle I've ever been on, because this windshield does a very good job of having that little vent in the right spot that keeps that buffet from building. So it's got kind of a way to shoot the jet stream up and keep you in a nice pocket of calm air as the rider. So it makes it even more comfortable than without the windscreen. So this is a very well done scheme here for wind protection. And I'm going north into the wind too, and it's not having any problems fighting the wind or anything of that nature. It's just cutting right through and doing a good job of keeping with traffic for the most part. I know everybody goes around me fast. I get that, but I try not to be that completely stupid. A, this isn't my motorcycle, and B, what are we teaching people by doing this all the time? We need to ride respectfully and drive respectfully for everybody around us, because let me tell you, none of you all have the skill to go the speed you're going. I can tell you that from my perspective, sitting on a motorcycle. I'd rather go the speed I'm going, and that way you guys get away from me if you catch my drift. But onwards and upwards. So anyway, the last time we did this, we were talking on the back of a scooter. And I really like the scooter in terms of its ability to commute, and the fact that it has built-in luggage and other things that motorcycles generally do not have. for the same price, maybe a little less on scooters, maybe a little more depending on the scooter that you're looking at. So with this one, for $4,300, or if you buy it new, a little over $5,000 in most cases, with the dock fees and everything like that, you're looking at just getting the passenger accoutrements with the little backrest and possibly a windshield, and that's about it. You have to purchase saddlebags, you know, separately for an additional cost, so you keep adding a little bit more on there. Whereas the scooter's a little bit more advantageous in this case because you literally just buy everything you need right up front. But the thing is, when it comes to scooters, you're sitting differently. It's like almost sitting in a couch, and you're riding with your legs out and your knees bent and nothing to grab onto. In a motorcycle, I tend to like this better, having the tank between my legs and riding. And the way the Meteor feels is so natural to me. It is one of the most natural motorcycles I've ever ridden. It just rides beautifully. Where you're riding, I'm riding one-handed most of this way because look at this wind up ahead too. I mean, we got a crash wind like no other, but we're so stable on this thing because the way it's just weighted correctly. It's just done right. The tires are a bigger size than scooters, so you have more advantageous on this side than you do a scooter because you have a little bit more control, in my opinion. Of course, you can actually put your hip and you can put your feet into the steering of the motorcycle, and you can counter the wind a little bit better when you have something to grip onto. So that is a big advantageous thing to me, is having that ability to just kind of grip onto the tank and grip onto the motorcycle, use the weight of your feet to help guide it, and that way it's a little bit easier to propel the motorcycle and steer it than it is a scooter. But the scooters, like I said, they have all that stuff already attached to them where you have a little bit more advantageous in cost and everything. But this one here, if you do not like the scooter, if you do not like your feet forward and against, or, you know, blowing in the wind in the best way sense, or knees or whatever, then this is the way to go. Having a motorcycle that's just the right size, just the right power to get around where you're going. This is an everyday commute for an Okie right here, being that we are usually fairly far away from our jobs and everything like that, and having a interstate between us somewhere or another. So usually our speeds are anywhere between 60 and 70 miles an hour, and in some cases 75. So we need things that can get that speed. So, you know, that's the thing about having a motorcycle that's just perfectly sized like this, is that it has the right amount of oomph to get you where you're looking to go. And of course, it's getting pretty good fuel mileage doing it. But this thing is just such a comfortable place to be. From my shoulder down to my elbow is straight, and then straight out, just a natural fall to the bar. The transmission is very spot on and accurate with its shifting. It's not notchy in any way.
And of course, just on time, Murphy's Law decides to strike Rabid Hedgehog like it always seems to do. So the one thing that I was wanting to talk about before the audio decided to leave me was just how well this suspension is. You notice this broken asphalt with these patches and rumbles and everything in it. And it's quite amazing how well this motorcycle goes over them, because usually on smaller motorcycles, the suspension is usually inadequate. It's usually very bouncy and choppy, and the front wheel even loses contact with the roads and stuff like this. But even over this harsher stuff, this suspension remains very, very well planted to the road, and it's not a jarring suspension. It doesn't bottom out. You don't find the stops in the front fork or the rear suspension. Of course, you got the twin shocks in the rear, coilover style, and a traditional fork, but that doesn't seem to hurt the ride quality whatsoever on that. A lot of people love inverted forks because the unsprung weight is different and all this other stuff, but sometimes it's just good to go back to tradition if it's done right. And this is one of those motorcycles that is done very much well right. It's very comfortable, very compliant, and it's a motorcycle that's better than any of the Rebel 300, for instance, because that one, even now, has a choppy bouncy feel even after the updates to that platform in 2020. And they enhanced the suspension and everything, but it still just doesn't feel as good as this one. One thing for sure, if you are comparing these two motorcycles, is the prices are close to the same. Equipment is a little bit better on the Enfield in this case because it does have the little day tripper thing on there. But note that the Rebel 300 definitely does have more oomph and power and can get up to speed better than the Royal Enfield because it is liquid cooled. It has different tolerances and stuff. And this is still a classic air cooled engine. So just note that when it comes to how those two deliver power, that the Rebel 300 is going to outrun this thing all day long, any day of the week. And it also has that extra gear in there. It has that 6-speed versus the 5. So just remember that if you're looking at these two. But the big thing that you're buying the Enfield for is not necessarily the look or feel of a Honda. You're buying it for a classic motorcycle feel, and one that feels a little bit more defined as a motorcycle is the best way I can say it. That it has the engine vibrations, and it has the feel, and it has the look. It has that classic chromed out look that many motorcyclists like, and that's the appeal that gets them into it the first time, is a motorcycle that looks classic and great. And the thing is going around this city, I actually had somebody roll their window down, and I heard them at the last moment, and they were saying that they really thought it was a cool motorcycle. They thought it was older, and I didn't even acknowledge them because I didn't quite hear them fast enough. But it got looks, and that's one thing that you'll definitely get on one of these versus a Honda or something like that people see more and more every day. Now, riding through city streets, this is where a motorcycle like this is just fantastic. One thing about having motorcycles that are super powerful, that are leader bikes or bigger or whatnot, even my FTR, I mean, I'm guilty for Pete's sake. I say that you just need something that is adequate or what is needed. And that is one thing that the 350 Meteor definitely covers. It is definitely what is needed. Because when you're going through at 35 miles an hour to 45, you're not using the potential of the motorcycle, not even this one. But that's the thing. Because this one is so much less powerful, but it's adequate in both directions, this is perfectly balanced. One thing about not being able to use everything that you have at your disposal is sometimes it gets a little bit boring in the ride and stuff like that. And sometimes you get jaded, and that's why you get off and start your speeds and have fun and rip it up on the interstate and other things when it needs to be taken out on a track. Let's be real. And this motorcycle is definitely not going to exude speed. It just wants to cruise. And that is sometimes all we need to do, especially for commuting. We just want one that rides and rides the way it needs to. And that's a beautiful blend and a beautiful balance that you simply don't get if you have the most powerful motorcycles and everything. So just remember that when you're looking, because here's the thing, there's a place and a time for sport bikes and super sports and big cruisers and other things where long-range touring is needed, and you need the storage space of the baggers, and you need all that stuff. That does need to happen, yes, if you're doing stuff like that. But for commuting, having just the right tool makes it better, and it puts a bigger smile on your face because you are using more of the motorcycle and its potential, and even some cases using the maximum amount of the motorcycle. And taking a slow motorcycle fast is just as exciting as doing a fast motorcycle because you're using it a little bit more so than you would the faster motorcycle, so you don't have to go as fast to get the same exhilaration, basically. Just remember that taking that slow motorcycle fast is using more of its power, which means you feel like you're maxing it out, and it's kind of more exciting in that way. So that's what I like about this, because it's perfect for just scooting around town like this and having a very nice, supple ride. The seating is so comfortable. Sitting at the lights is comfortable. One thing that I've always noted is heat coming off of engines and stuff. And yes, this is a cooler day, but you never feel anything blowing off of it. Even in the hotter day that I did the last ride on, you just didn't feel any of that heat coming up or rising into the seat or anything of that nature. It stays very nicely where it needs to, away from the rider. And the air cooling on this motorcycle does an adequate job, and you don't really feel overheated or anything like that. So sitting in traffic, this is no big deal for this motorcycle at all. Now, one thing is for sure is checking it out on all highway conditions. Like I mentioned earlier in the video, in Oklahoma we have vast distances we have to cover, and for the most part we have a interstate somewhere near us or a state highway that is large enough to handle speeds of 70, 75 miles an hour even, and that's not very uncommon here. So the one thing that is definitely you want to test is, can you do that speed? And I can happily say the way this one is geared is perfect. It's almost like Royal Enfield decided that 75 in fifth gear was the maximum speed it could go. And that's exactly what it does. You get there to 75 indicated, and it just stays put. It might get a little bit higher, but it never really backs off. It always has just enough power to hold it, even with my weight at 209 pounds going up a hill. It doesn't fall away from that speed, and that is very good, because I remember being on the TU250, for instance. Yeah, it's a little bit smaller engine and other things, but it always would trail off a little bit in the speed with my weight on it, and that's one thing this one does not do. You add that wind, you add my weight, you add a hill, and it just stays at 75, nice and planted. And that is all I would ask of it, because that's the maximum speed our state has anyway. We don't have any higher speed limits here in Oklahoma, so it's perfect for that run and that commute. So this motorcycle can literally be used 100% just on a commute, and it is a very happy motorcycle to do it. It is a very comfortable, wonderful riding motorcycle. It is even better than I remember it, to be honest, because the first ride was fun and exciting and I liked it then, but now it is even better to me. It is something that I would really, really love to have in my garage and add to it. So it's a motorcycle I highly, highly recommend. And I once again want to thank Indian of Oklahoma City for allowing me to take out one of their used machines once again. But somebody please come and take it off their hands before I get back to it, because I might accidentally have to buy it. So I recommend getting there before I do, because for real, I love this motorcycle that much, and I would recommend it for anybody who's looking for a good, solid commuter that would love to have that classic look, that classic feel, that wonderful motorcycle ride that's as authentic as it possibly can be, that's comfortable, and just an absolute joy to ride. So at any rate, this is the Rabid Hedgehog. Once again, we want to thank Indian of Oklahoma City for allowing us to do this used bike review. Also, we want to give a shout out, of course, to Law Tigers of Oklahoma, Doug Crawford and USA Synthetics and his AMS oil, and also AGVSportUSA for providing the gear for our team. At any rate, keep that shiny side up, folks, and we'll catch you on the next ride.